Hey everybody, my name is Paul Eston Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. And of course, it's a Mock Draft Monday here. Got the Jets draft shirt on from a couple of years ago. And on every Mock Draft Monday here on the channel, we bring in a different insider and guest to talk all things Jets and whatever's happening. And of course, do some mock draft action as well. And for this week, we get the other piece of the puzzle. Last week, we had Connor Rogers on, a great friend of the show. And now, of course, we had to get the other half of the NFL Stock Exchange. Ring the goddamn bell, because Trevor Sikkema is here. Trevor, what's up, man?
Paul, I appreciate you having me on, man. That's probably the most energetic intro I've ever had as a guest on a podcast. And so as somebody who is extremely energetic and out, like talking with his hands and dramatic and everything, I respect the crap out of it. So I appreciate it, man. That got me hyped up. I'm very happy to be here with you.
All right, beautiful. I know this first part of the interview may be happy for you. It may not be. I would imagine not, but let's go there. I've been doing a cool series on my YouTube channel this year where every New York Jets new free agent they bring in, we bring in an expert from wherever they came from to talk about the new addition. So I guess I got to start here. We'll do a mini version of it in the middle of this Mock Draft Monday. That's Jordan Whitehead, who comes over, cousin of Darrelle Revis. That doesn't hurt. Let me ask you, for Jet fans who are kind of curious, what are they getting here? How good is Jordan Whitehead, and what do you think of the fit?
Extremely surprised that for what the Jets paid Jordan Whitehead, that the Bucs didn't match, because he was a major part of their safety rotation. Tampa had a 3-deep safety rotation that they've run the last 2 years with Mike Edwards, Antoine Winfield Jr., and Jordan Whitehead, kind of depending on what coverage they wanted to have, where the ball was on the field, what exactly they were looking to do, whether it was really defend the run or the pass. I think that Jordan Whitehead he was such an important part of that. And he is more of a downhill safety. He is more of a strong safety type who's going to be that guy who plays close near the box, maybe even off the line of scrimmage, be a blitzer, be a guy who can play with the linebackers and absolutely fly to the ball. He'll hit wide receivers over the middle of the field, when the NFL is not changing the rules to soften up the game, if you will. So, but he brings that physicality, man. And, I've said this before so many times. Jordan Whitehead would break every bone in his body to make a tackle. That is who he, and he's not, I think that early in his career, he was a lot more reckless than he is now. A statement like that makes you feel like, oh, this guy's just an absolute loose cannon, but he's learned how to be more controlled with that speed and physicality. So he's still playing 110%. The motor is still running extremely hot. He does not shy away from physicality. He's looking to put his shoulder right into your chest and make sure you remember if you're past the line of scrimmage, you're going to have to answer for it as a ball carrier. So he does a lot of those things. He's such a great tone setter. Now, he's not going to play free safety for you, right? For as athletic as this guy is in pursuit and how fast he is going to the ball, he does not have the best feel for deep zone coverage. And so he's going to be more of a downhill, everything in front of you kind of a safety. But like I said, I was very surprised the Bucs did not prioritize him more, because he has been that important for them in their safety rotation. So I think the Jets got a great one, man. I really do. Everybody loves to talk about the rangy, flashy, single high kind of free safeties when they talk about safeties to covet. But dudes like Jordan Whitehead, you want on your football team. And so I think that was a great addition for the Jets.
And a stunning thing, self-admitted by Whitehead, the Bucs didn't even make an offer, which it seemed like may have rubbed him the wrong way, which, again, that happened to a couple of the Jet free agents they brought in. DJ Jones was another one. Said Seattle, the offer they gave was insulting and disrespect is how he felt, but didn't even give an offer from Tampa Bay, which was kind of interesting. So
yeah, no, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. For the price tag that he signed for, I don't think it was just a smoke screen or just being nice when the coaches and everybody said, after Whitehead left, how important he was. I think they genuinely believed that, but maybe they just had other ideas with what they needed to do with that cap space. Obviously bringing Brady back. They're trying to bring Gronk back. They signed Godwin to a long-term contract. So maybe they just needed the money to be flexible, but in terms of losing the player, it's a big loss for him. It really is. It's a big game for the Jets.
By the way, thank you. As you could do it on behalf of the entire Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization, Chris Godwin. Oh, you want him for agency? Oh, sorry, Jets. Tagged. Not going to happen. Oh, Tom Brady back? Oh, you want to get angry some more? Yeah, we are just going to bring him out of retirement. So thank you for all of that in Jets fandom.
Listen, if any Jets fan out there who's listening to this podcast has followed me on Twitter, you would have known that I tried to brace everyone around the league that Chris Godwin was not going anywhere. There was no way he was going to play anywhere else. At the bare minimum, they were going to franchise tag him again, and they were going to make sure that they got a deal done later. He is too important to the organization. The praise for him is unanimous. What he does in the offense is irreplaceable. How great he is as a route runner, how much he's able to have strength contested catches over the middle. Like, they were never losing Chris Godwin. It was never going to happen. And so I know that there were fans, not just Jets fans, but like Eagles fans as well. So many fans around the NFL, Packers fans, like so many people were like, ooh, but what about Chris Godwin? And every time it came up, I was just like, ooh, it's not happening. And I don't even say that as like a Tampa dude. I was just letting them know it wasn't going to happen. And of course it didn't.
Yeah, that's funny. And let's go back to the safety conversation, because that's a natural segue here to Kyle Hamilton, which may be the most polarizing guy in Jet fandom. Half of them love him. They think he's a great prospect and would be phenomenal. The other half are like, hell no. And Jamal Adams and everything else, obviously, that burn from a couple years ago kind of factors in. But I've heard some draft people tell me, they're like, hey, Kyle Hamilton would be a perfect complement to what Jordan Whitehead just added to the New York Jets. So I ask you, Trevor, should that still be on the board for the Jets?
I think it totally should be on the board for the Jets. Now, I would tell you that I don't think they're going to pick him at 4, right? And so, like, if any of the teams in the top 5 or the top 10, because that's the next time the Jets pick, if any of those teams want Kyle Hamilton, I think that he's going to be gone there. I think the only pick that the Jets really consider him is at number 10, but they should consider him because the trenches are too strong in this draft. If the Jets at all want to go offensive line, like, I know that they've beefed up the offensive line throughout free agency, and that in theory, on paper, if you will, they look good on the offensive line. But Connor has told me before that they really love Ike Ekwonu, right? And so if he's on the board, maybe he's still going to be the pick for him at 4. And so I think that with him being on the board, and then of course like Jermaine Johnson and Kayvon Thibodeaux and maybe Trayvon Walker and all those guys who play in the trenches, there's too many options that are going to be available at number 4 for them to pick Kyle Hamilton, I think. But if we get closer to number 10, they pick a trench player up in the top 5, you're probably going to be debating if Hamilton's still on the board between that and maybe a wide receiver, maybe a corner. And it just kind of depends what you want to do and how your board falls, how high they have him. And I think that he should be considered. I really do. I get it from Jets fans. People talk about being burned by Jamal Adams and everything like that. But Kyle Hamilton's a different kind of safety, right? Because the big issue with Jamal Adams is Jamal Adams was essentially what Jordan Whitehead is. And Jamal Adams played it to a better level, but like, he is that exact mold. He's a downhill safety. He's a hitter. And like, that's not worth where they selected him. Like, Jordan Whitehead was picked in the 4th round. There's just such a massive difference. And when you talk about Kyle Hamilton, you talk about something different. Yeah, you're talking about a guy who can come downhill and tackle near the line of scrimmage and pursue ball carriers, but you're also talking about a player with really unique size who could play in deep coverage with all sorts of tight ends and X receivers and has range in deep coverage. And so, like, that means that he should be on the board. Is he going to ultimately be the pick for them? I don't know. But if he's still available at 10, yeah, you got to think about it, depending on how the board falls for you.
Again, we're speaking with Trevor Sikkema, who's a company man, the old PFF logo on the cap. Appreciate that. And by the way, speaking of Pro Football Focus, Trevor, your recent mock draft we got to dive into. Get the scuba gear on, folks. And that first pick you have for the Jets is Ike Ekwonu, who, again, Connor Rogers has spoken highly about in Jets Twitter land. But again, and the interesting thing about this interview, Mock Draft Monday, is post-free agency, somewhat speaking. There's still a lot that can still happen here, but a lot of Jet fans thought if we took Ike at 4, okay, he could play guard for a year, and then you have that beautiful offensive tackle insurance just in case something goes south on the outside. Now, they just invested $40 million into Laken Tomlinson, so now the guard thing's off the table. So I ask you, Trevor, that if the Jets still take Ike Ekwonu, does that mean you immediately have to either trade Mekhi Becton or George Fant? Because Jet fans are like, okay, if you take Ike, where the hell is he playing?
Right. And that's why me having Ike at 4 is more of me trusting what I'm hearing than essentially me like making the mock draft maybe as myself, because I love Mekhi Becton, but I have heard on more than one occasion that the Jets or just people might be frustrated with his availability. And you got to be able to play, man. You got to be able to play. And it's not really his fault. He's just a massive human being. But unfortunately, people that are as big as Mekhi Becton have injuries. Like that's just the way that it is. It's like they're not supposed to be that big. And so it's always a special kind of player when you get that size and you're able to play as much as you do. I have heard on more than one occasion that trading Mekhi Becton is not off the table. Now, unfortunately, in this situation, what are you getting from Mekhi Becton? Because you're not getting back for him what you put in. At this point in time, with the injuries and the question marks, and with the New York Jets even having him available, if they do, you're not getting back what you put in for him. You are getting probably some sort of a second-round pick back for him, maybe a second-round pick and something else. Maybe you'll get like a third-round pick too, a fourth-round pick too. That's just off the top of my head where I think the value would be for him. And so, me personally, if you still believe that Mekhi Becton could be your guy, I'm probably not taking Icky at 4. But that is what I'm hearing there. I'm hearing that the Jets absolutely love Icky Ekwonu, and shoot, maybe they see a reality where it's Laken Tomlinson and it's Elijah Vera Tucker and it's Mekhi Becton on one side and it's Icky Ekwonu on the other. Maybe they do. Maybe Fant might be the odd man out. I'm not exactly sure what happens. I just know that when I have talked about the Jets with different people, Icky is still on the board, and Icky is still somebody that they really like. Does that change heavily? Because I haven't had in-depth conversations since free agency, since the Laken Tomlinson signing. So, like, has that changed entirely? I'm not sure, but that's kind of why I had Ekwonu with them at 4, just because it's been a lot of what I'm hearing with them.
Fair enough. And everybody, make sure you stop what you're doing, hit the thumbs up, and smash that subscribe button as well. And then Tampa Bay Trey, you see the little name tag right there. Why don't you hop over to Twitter and smack some of that too? That'd be pretty cool. Let's take a quick detour here, Trevor. I'm going to give you this, okay? I want you to play matchmaker. You're now Will Smith in the movie Hitch, and this is what we need. We've got Michael Carter, okay? A beautiful running back. He's fantastic, but has not been able to stay healthy just in 1 year sample size. So let's get him a compliment. Who is a power, bigger back on day 3 that can be the yin to his yang, the salt to his pepper, the mac to his cheese, Trevor? Who could that guy be? Who are one guy or multiple guys on day 3 of the draft that would fit that mold for the Jets? Who's the perfect complement to Michael Carter?
I mean, they'd love Dameon Pierce. I don't know if they're going to get Dameon Pierce on day 3. He's the running back from Florida. Everybody absolutely loves him. He's got a lot of power to his game. He's got a lot of physicality. If you've never watched Dameon Pierce before, just type in his highlights, and I guarantee the first clip that's going to come up is him getting his helmet ripped off at the 7-yard line against Florida State. And he, without hesitation, just continues to chug along straight to the goal line, lowers his shoulders against 3 Florida State defenders that are standing there trying to stop him. And he didn't even have a helmet on. Like, that's just the mentality, the power kind of mentality that this guy has. I don't know if he's going to be available early day 3. I think that somebody might take a chance on him on day 2. But hey, maybe he will. Maybe he'd be an early 4th-round pick. Couple of other players that I think might be interesting when it comes to power profiles. I think Zonovan Knight, Bam Knight, as his nickname would be, from NC State. He's another guy who I think lowers the shoulder, gives you a little bit of speed element with that physicality. And so I think that if you're talking about day 3 backs, those are 2 dudes who bring a tough, powerful, tackle-breaking mentality to the position. So I would keep an eye on those 2 guys. They love Pierce. Not so sure they're going to be able to get him, but if you can't get him, I think a guy like Zonovan Knight might make a lot of sense for them.
All right, fair enough. Let's dive right back into your PFF mock draft. Fortunately, thanks, Jamal Adams, the Jets have 2 first-round picks. So let's go to number 10 overall. You had them going Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. Now, Jet fans aren't, I wouldn't say, as familiar with him as the Aiden Hutchinsons of the world and Kayvon Thibodeaux. We'll get to that in a minute. But Jermaine Johnson going off, what's the pitch? Why should Jet fans be more than okay if Jermaine Johnson ends up being a Jet, which, by the way, is another huge Connor Rogers guy?
Yeah, I mean, the pitch is that he's probably not even going to be available at number 10. Like, that's how good this guy is. I mean, I think that he brings everything that you want to the table from an edge rush player, a heavy edge rush player, because there are other guys who might be a little bit faster, have a little bit more bend. Like, if you're, a 3-4 team that wants a smaller weight, faster, more explosive speed kind of rusher, you're going to be able to find that a little bit better than Jermaine Johnson. But he just brings such all-around game to the table, whether it is from a 2-point stance or a 3-point stance. I think he does very, very well. When I watched his tape this past year and even the year before, I thought that we had a very strong, great run defender, disciplined guy, super violent, strong hands, really good placement, was never going to be a liability in the run game. And we were talking about a base 4-3, 5-tech defensive end, really nice player to get somewhere on day 2. But then this past year, double-digit sacks, and of the sacks that he was able to get, some of them were eye-popping. And you didn't see a lot of that speed and flexibility and, even just like speed to power and different moves and push pulls and inside moves, things like that from him as often. But when you would see it, it'd be like, whoa, okay, that was extremely impressive. You just didn't see it a lot. And so that made me think, okay, that's not really his bread and butter. That's not really what he wants to do. So you draft him with that pass rush upside. But again, still probably like top 50 kind of a pick, fringe, first, second rounder guy. He goes to Senior Bowl and he does so well in one-on-one drills in pass rushing, just dominating anybody he went up against. He didn't even practice the third day. His agent told him, nah, you're good. You're good. Nope.
Yeah.
We 2 days of practice, and he is whooping these guys so bad they didn't even need to play on the third day of practice. Obviously, goes to the combine, plays really well at the or shows up really well at the combine as well with his athletic testing. And so now all of those pass rush flashes that you saw before with him checking the box physically and athletically. And then you saw what it was like when the coaches just told him, hey, pin your ears back and go after the quarterback. You saw that at the Senior Bowl. All of a sudden you go, whoa, okay, this guy can do it on command. It's not that he like can't. He truly can. He just wasn't asked to nearly as much at Florida State, probably because the rest of the defensive line wasn't holding their end of the bargain on the line of scrimmage. So, dude, I mean, him on one side, Carlos on the other would be sexy. I mean, like that would just be slick. That would immediately become one of my favorite, I would say, like under the radar, if you will, 1 to 2 edge rush duos that we have in the NFL. So I think that would be huge for the Jets if they could get a guy like Jermaine Johnson at 10.
All right, let's go to the guy that, again, Jermaine Johnson, you just gave me the pitch. I'm ready to go buy a Jermaine Johnson Jets jersey right now, Trevor, based on everything you just said. But let's go to the guy that Jet fans are really craving for. Quite frankly, been craving for months. That's Kayvon Thibodeaux. But obviously, there's been a lot of hoopla. And even, I got to go to the latest comment we got from Rich Cimini of ESPN, who's been covering the Jets for 30 years. Here's the latest he's heard on Kayvon Thibodeaux. I want to read this to you. One AFC scout called Kayvon overrated. Thibodeaux lacks the natural bend to be an elite pass rusher. Todd McShay has questioned his fire. Some talent evaluators have wondered about his commitment to football, saying he spends too much time talking about off-the-field interest. And the other thing we heard from the NFL Combine was that he mentioned his brand at least 3 times during our Combine interview. Again, the speed dating that was happening for all those that were down there. Is this all BS? Where is this coming from? A couple of months ago, he was a number 1 pick, and Jet fans thought if they wanted him, they would have had to lose out in a bunch of ways. Now they're sitting there at 4. And Jet fans are thinking he's going to be on the board, but Rich Cimini in the same piece says he would be, quote unquote, surprised if the Jets took him at 4, which makes all of us Jet fans go, no, not Warren Sapp again from 1995. Don't give us Kyle Brady. We want Sapp. There's Thibodeaux chance. What is this BS? Is this real? What's happening with all the Kayvon Thibodeaux slander out there on the streets, Trevor?
Look, I'm not in these meetings with these teams, and so I cannot speak to being in the room when they speak to Kayvon Thibodeaux, but I thought the reaction from the initial interview where he's sitting there with sunglasses on, talking about his brand, I thought that was crazy that people were blowing that up out of proportion. I was at his podium the entire time that he was speaking at the Combine, and he was awesome. I loved it. This guy's got a lot of personality. He's super confident, but he didn't come off as arrogant to me. Does he have other interest in football? Yeah, and like people should. Like, we're human beings. And I think the NFL gets really worried because you look at Isaiah Wilson, right, from the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Isaiah Wilson just didn't care about football. Like, had all the talent in the world, but he just like cared about other stuff. Like, I think he wanted to make music. Like, he released an album. Like, he just clearly wasn't. He did not have the work ethic when he showed up at the facility. And that's the thing. Teams, and the reason why I think that they get so bent out of shape about this is they think that the more interest you have off the field, the more it is a threat to you being able to show up to the facility and have a good work ethic. And where that is, I guess, true from like a surface level standpoint. Like, if you have more interest, you're just interested in other things in life. Kayvon Thibodeaux being interested in other things does not mean that when he shows up to the facility that he is then not a good worker. And I think that's the nitty-gritty part of things that teams have to figure out. It's not, oh, this guy's got other interests, he's not going to care about football. That part of it's lazy. You have to get to the bottom of figuring out, like, is this dude, when he shows up to the facility, going to give you the work ethic, going to give you the fire, going to become that great player? Because then it's like, who cares? Like, who cares about this other stuff? And so that is the more, I would say, like, deeper way to approach Thibodeaux and any prospect who shows that they have interest off the field that they love. And look, I mean, there's, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's overblown. Yes. I think it's silly. We're to the point where, like Kayvon, okay, we don't like how Kayvon sounded in an interview, so now I'm going to talk about how he doesn't have bend. Okay, what are we doing now? Is Kayvon the bendiest dude on the planet? Is he like Von Miller running under a table? No. But he's clearly got really nice dip. He's got good flexibility. The ankle flexion is there for him. He's got great speed to power. He can burst off the line of scrimmage extremely well. He knows how to attack the outside shoulder. He gives you what you want, man. All of that stuff is there. And the interview process is huge. We hear this every year. Guys, teams want to figure out how much these guys love football. But all I will say about Kayvon Thibodeaux is that him having interest outside of football does not prohibit him from also being somebody who wants to get the most out of what he is as a football player. Just because he likes other things does not mean that he is not going to be a hard worker when he gets on the field. So, like I said, I haven't been in these meetings. I've never sat down with Kayvon Thibodeaux myself, just even from a PFF perspective, let alone a team about to draft him perspective. So I always hate kind of trying to comment on the character of guys that I've never even really met. Yeah. But like I said, the podium session, man, Kayvon was getting all sorts of questions, football, question marks about his work ethic, how he approaches the game. I thought he was great, man. I thought he sounded extremely smart, extremely well put together, knew exactly how to answer a lot of the questions, some of the things that he does well in his game, some of the areas where he wants to get better, how he sees himself in the NFL, how he sees himself as a player on and off the field. Like, I thought he had a great head on his shoulders from what I heard there. So look, teams are going to do whatever they want to do. And we see the NFL do stuff all the time where they kind of overblow a character, but that is the toughest part of the evaluation for a lot of these guys. I talk to GMs, I'll talk to head coaches, and they tell you all the time, like, we don't really miss on the evaluation of players. We miss on the evaluation of the person. And that's what always really scares teams, is that part of it. They can tell you how a guy wins. Coaches can look at a guy and be like, yeah, this is how we use him. This is how we get the best out of his ability. This is what he does well. This is how he can get better. A lot of teams nail that part of the scouting prospect. It's figuring out who these guys are as people. But man, with Kayvon, I think a lot of it's overblown, man. I really do.
I'm glad, Trevor. It seemed like you had a lot on your chest there, so I'm glad you were able to get it off on Kayvon Thibodeaux. Jet fans, again, are hoping and praying. We'll see what happens there. Another logical fit, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, some Jet fans have thought, number 10 overall could be a wide receiver. Is there a wide receiver that you think is a good fit? Because it seems like there's no consensus number one guy. It's kind of your flavor. What do you prefer from that standpoint? So with that being said, can you address that narrative? And also, is there a receiver that's available that you think is particularly a good fit for the Jets?
Drake London's been my wide receiver one since October, and I've loved him at number 10 since I started doing mock drafts in November. I really have, and that really hasn't changed. I know it's kind of like, it's boring at this point. I know a lot of Jets fans have seen Drake London there before, and we've read a lot of mock drafts at this point at the end of March. But, I mean, that's still a great fit. It's always been a great fit. Giving Zach Wilson a player where, I don't want to, when I say this, I'm going to bring up Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans. I'm not comparing Drake London to Mike Evans necessarily, because I think that Evans was just, he really is. He's kind of a marvel in of his own. So I don't want to compare Evans and London's total skill sets when I say this, but Johnny Manziel had so much confidence when he played at Texas A&M. And a big reason for that was because sometimes he just chucked it up to Mike Evans and he came down with it. And that confidence that you get, that big first down, that whatever that is, that catch, goes into the other parts of your game. And it makes you a better football player, even in other areas that don't directly involve your connection with that single wide receiver. When you have a contested catch guy that sometimes it's Third down, money down, you got to convert. Oh, shoot, the offensive tackle got worked on an inside move. I'm bailing from the pocket. I'm running to the sideline. Where's London? He's kind of covered, but we need it. Let's throw it to him. You throw it to him, and London comes down with it because he's a contested catch monster. That immediately just gives you confidence to play the quarterback position better, no matter who you're throwing to, no matter what's happening, no matter what the play call is. And so I think that is so important. People bring up the lack of separation with Drake London, and I hear what they're saying, but I don't think Drake London is as slow as people think that he is going to be, whenever it is he runs, if we see him at pro day or not. So I think that the speed is overblown with him. I think he can sink his hips better than a lot of really high-legged wide receivers can that are of his size. And with that, I think that he's got great change of direction. He can flip those hips well. He can hit comeback routes pretty quickly. I think all that is there. I also don't think his quarterback play was great when he was at USC. So a lot of those throws that are like, they turn into contested catches, that's not all his fault. Like, it's not just because he's slow. So I think that he does. I think that things change a little bit in the NFL. He shows people he's a little bit more of a wide receiver one. And so that's kind of my thoughts there.
A quick nugget here. Again, you don't have to go into deep stuff about this, but Malik Willis at number 2, is that real? Is that hogwash? Or are people doing voodoo dolls behind the scenes and saying, oh, maybe that happens?
I've heard it. I just don't know with this quarterback class.
Okay.
Man. I think that we are going to hear a lot more solidified like rumors and just learn a lot more now that free agency is kind of over, right? We have a lot of these quarterbacks moving, and Baker Mayfield's obviously still got to move, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to move, and what happens with Matt Ryan in Atlanta, I think a lot of that matters. Where Jameis Winston goes, like all that kinds of stuff matters for what's going to happen with this quarterback class. But once all that gets figured out, I would say once we get into April, then we're really going to hear, because people love to talk, right? People with information love to talk. And so it's going to get out there exactly where we think Malik Willis is going to go. I think he's going to be a top 20 quarterback, because I think the Steelers certainly at number 20 are the absolute floor for him. But I've also heard that they've got to trade up if they want to get him. I just don't know where it fits yet. We're going to learn a lot more about that over the next 2 weeks.
Trevor, last one before we get you out of here. It is a tradition on this show, and you are forced. You're going to be put up against it to do a Jets mock draft, and I will give you the pick. You just tell me where they're going, either a player you like, a player that makes sense there. Again, the world is your oyster. You're the GM. You're going to get to slap the cap on here, and we'll do 4, 10, 35, and 38. And you can give a quick reason if you'd like for why you pick it. So we'll start at number 4, our first ever post-free agency 2-round mock here. We'll put you up against it. Let's start out at number 4. Trevor, where did the Jets go?
I would take Kayvon Thibodeaux. I would probably take Kayvon Thibodeaux at number 4, given everything that I think is probably going to happen in front of him. I think that he is still going to be on the board at that point. And, I wouldn't hate Ike Ekwonu. It just means that you then have to make a decision, right, which then forces you to then make more decisions. And right. I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux, again, I talked about Jermaine Johnson and Carl Lawson. Kayvon Thibodeaux and Carl Lawson, I think would be great as well. So I'm going to go Kayvon at number 4.
Jet fans, run to Tampa Trey's mentions right now and throw your rose petals. It's about time, because all these people have been yelling at you for everything you've been doing on these mock drafts or counters. So you know what? Let's throw some rose petals there for Kayvon Thibodeaux. That's beautiful, Trevor. All right, let's jump over to number 10. What do you compliment there with old Kayvon Thibodeaux at number 4 overall?
It depends who's on the board, obviously, but since I have the power here, I will say Sauce Gardner. I will say Ahmad Gardner, the cornerback from Cincinnati. If he is available at number 10, I think that he should be the choice for them. I think wide receiver would be on the board as well. So I think that wide receiver, corner, if they take an edge rusher at 4, I think that it's probably going to be one of those two. If Sauce Gardner is there, I would take him. If Stingley's foot checks out, like, I would also love Stingley. Like, I think that Stingley's probably a top 5 player in this class, but the Liz Frank foot injury really, really, really worries me. So if you can get a lot more confidence about his current medical situation, then I would also be okay with Stingley at number 10. So it'd probably be Sauce Gardner, then Derek Stingley, and then a wide receiver. So I'm going to go corner. I'll go Sauce Gardner. I think that it's just really hard to get a shutdown corner. Yeah. The Jets need a corner 1. And Sauce Gardner brings a very unique size and speed profile. This 6'3" is a guy who runs 4.4.
That's a beautiful double dip of defense. So let's go to 35. You waited on wide receiver. Maybe that's a direction you could go. Again, you're the GM. I'm just guiding this train. 35. Where do we go here, old Trevor?
We're going with my boy George Pickens. I think George Pickens is going to be
Yes.
available at the front end of the second round. I think that he gives you wide receiver one potential, man. I think that when you look at him, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, like the other guys that are there, I mean, you put George Pickens on that line of scrimmage, I think that it makes a major difference for them. And so, for as much as I think that Pickens has had a really nice offseason, I still haven't heard a lot of buzz about him being a first round pick, which makes me think he'll be available early part of the second round. So I think the Jets will have their chance to get him. And I think that this is a guy who you kind of swing for the fences for. And you love the tape early on as a freshman and a sophomore. That knee looked like it was healed, especially at the end of the season when Georgia was winning the national championship. So I'll go with George Pickens at 35 there.
And again, if any Jet fan or anyone, by the way, you should listen to the NFL Stock Exchange. It's one of the best NFL draft goddamn podcasts on the planet. And you should check it out. Trevor and George Pickens, they've got a budding romance there. They've had that for months. So keep an eye out for that. All right, let's round it out. 38. Obviously, the Jets have a litany of needs even after free agency. So a lot of interesting directions they could go. How do you wrap up this 2-round post-free agency mock draft, Trevor?
So I think my mind immediately goes to safety. Like I know like tight end could also be an option for them, but they just signed Uzama, so I don't think it's that desperate for them. I look at safety and like if Lewis Seen is available, you're sprinting the card in, but I don't think he's going to be available there. Okay. I like Jalen Petrie as well with the athleticism there. I think that he would also be a really good pick. I think that he's more of like a guy who you could play as a slot defender, which again, like you're almost kind of setting up a safety rotation with Whitehead. And then if Petrie's more of your slot defender guy, and then maybe you have faith in Ashton Davis to be more of a free safety, or maybe you'd be acquiring one later. So I would be looking at safety. Daxton Hill's on the board as well, if he's not picked already. But I think you're going to have one of those guys I think is going to be available at that point. So I would go with one of them. And I think Jalen Petrie's probably the most likely there. So let's go with Jalen Petrie, the safety from Baylor.
Beautiful, Trevor. We'll let the Jet fans throw all over the place how they grade this mock, but beautiful work, Trevor. It was fantastic to get the other half of the NFL Stock Exchange. Check that one off the bucket list on the podcast. Trevor, thank you so much for stopping by. You're a big guy, man, and fans love you, and it's great to have you, man, on the show. Thank you so much, man.
Well, I appreciate it, Paul. And dude, I love Jets fans a lot. Like I know that Jets fans out there don't always agree with some of the picks that I make for the mock draft of their team, but I love the fact that they're vocal about it. Like they are passionate fans. And look, I always tell people, yeah, I'm doing mock drafts and I'm trying to do it for all 32 teams and cover it. But like, you know your team very, very well. And there's a good chance that, you know, you might maybe teach me something about exactly what your team might be thinking and things like that. Like I bring a lot of my draft expertise for how I see these players and what I'm hearing around the league. But I always love having conversations with fans and guys who really follow teams as well, especially when it comes to the draft. And so Jets fans are great, man. I've loved interacting with Jets fans over the years. We've had a lot of really great conversations. They've taught me a lot about what's going on with the details of their team. And, you know, I kind of talk to them about how I see the scouting process and what I've been hearing from their team as well. So I love Jets fans. I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man. This is a lot of fun.
And before we sign off, I'll give you the platform. Any PFF plugs, anything juicy you want to drop here on the show, my man?
We're just pedal to the metal now until draft weekend, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing a lot of different mock drafts, a lot of team fits now that free agency is done. And so now the accuracy starts to come in. Now it's, you know, we're going to be telling you about prospects and guys that you should keep an eye on, but we're also going to be predicting what we think is going to happen come to the end of April. So now home stretch is going to be a lot of fun.
Beautiful, Trevor. You're one of the best in the gosh darn business. PFF got a gem. Put my word in for a raise. I don't know if that'll get you one, but glad to do it anyway, Trevor, for the family. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
Appreciate it.